I'm Tricia Moscati. I'm Head of Digital Transformation at Heriot-Watt, and I'm going to put you through the whole what we do first, that slide. So a lot of people think of Heriot-Watt, they think of our Riccarton campus. It's that way. But actually we've got 5 campuses. So we've got Dubai, which opened last year. That's our 3rd Dubai campus. We've had various buildings. We've got our Edinburgh one, which you probably all know about. We've got Gala Shields, which is our School of Textiles one. And then we've got Orkney, which is like our sort of carbon capture, sort of energy type campus. And then we've got Malaysia. This is my campus. Well, it's not mine, but I call it my campus because I was the programme lead for the IT and the AV and the library for it, and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure that happened. So it's beautiful. Look at that. It's got a grass roof. I love it. I love it.
Where in Malaysia is it?
It's in it's Putrajaya.
No.
Yeah.
Near to KL, not
Yeah, it's about half an hour, I think, from KL. So, and with having 5 campuses, you can see here on the left, each of those campuses have, well, not all of them, but 3 of the countries have a chief operating officer, and they all have their sort of senior members of staff. We've got schools like the Global College. Yeah, I know them by acronyms. Aegis, Social Sciences, Textiles and Design, Heriot-Watt and Line. So we've got all these schools, and they've each got their executive deans as well. So they're really senior. And then we've got our global research institutes as well. You know, and they're bringing in millions of pounds worth of income. And I thought I would also tell you about a few of the research areas that I'm particularly interested. So. We've got teams of researchers working on precision laser scalpels, so that they can, they can use little beams to sort of laser off cancer and stuff like that. So really non-invasive. We've got a centre for innovation and carbon capture. So that's the whole thing of like trying to, solve global problems. We've got, and this is one of my favourites because I'm half Singaporean, but I'm also half Scottish, and I'm from a place just outside Dornoch, and they're introducing oysters back into the Dornoch Firth, so I love that one. And then we've got the invention of the K-brick, and that's a brick made of 90% recycled construction of demolition waste, and it takes 1/10 of the energy to produce it. So really cool stuff, and that's why I love working where I work. But as you can imagine, you've got all these people who are doing all these really cool things, trying to solve global problems. And if we've got crappy processes, we're just getting in the way. And that's how they see it. So last year, I was appointed as Head of Digital Transformation. The role was created as a sort of a global cross-functional leadership role. So it was only supposed to be just myself. And that was last year. And we were obviously at digital transformation. We were focusing on people, process, and technology. And there are many strings to this bow. So there's things like skills, tech, culture, data insights, and I focused on 3 things that I thought that if you wanted to, you could probably implement with not very much effort. So this session is, I kind of wish that I'd renamed it something along like digital transformation when you haven't really got much time and money. And I feel like this is where we're going here. So we do large-scale strategic change. So we do the whole things like an ERP or enhancing online and collaboration through, Office 365 or putting a new accommodation system. We do all of that, but we also do the smaller scale stuff, and that's the sort of low code, the process digitization. So the smaller smaller improvements that have big compound gains. So that's the two scales that we do. So like I say, we've got all those competing voices, and I went round all of them and many more, and I said, what are your top 3 processes that you want to look at? And they came back and they told me what they wanted, and I ended up with 158 to prioritise, and I was like, that is ridiculous. And as I've told some of you in the room before, I am a little bit of a geek, and my actual background is a programmer. So I graduated at Robert Gordon's. There's somebody in the room for Robert Gordon's. I did computing there, and so I am pretty. I like to roll my sleeves up and do a little bit of coding where possible, which I hope my manager doesn't see this. So the way I thought, right, how am I going to prioritize 158 processes? Because I've worked in IT capital projects for so long, I've worked in an environment where there's like, I'm dealing with a lot of those senior people, and they get to know you, and they feel like they can phone you up at any time and say, oh, Tricia, my process is way more important than this process. Can you make that happen? And because I've worked quite closely with them on so many programs, it's really hard to say no. So I'm trying to be empirical about it. And this is where my bad slide comes up, because I thought the monitor would be bigger. So this is what I call the scoring engine. And again, I'm not great with titles. I said to you before, I could have done better with my presentation title before I came here. So I don't know why I called it the scoring engine. But essentially, a change sponsor, so one of the people in the previous slides, or like one of the COOs or a head of school or something like that, they fill out an online form. Once they fill out the online form, and in our case, we use Microsoft Office as well for that, the question has multiple choices, and those multiple choices are scored. And from that, you get the score. So I'm just going to talk you through them very quickly, because obviously this is not a great visual. So number one, this column here is the ID. And whenever we're writing code or whenever we're creating a Visio swim lane, we make sure we prefix it with that so that we can always tie it back to this pipeline. Then we have the outcome. And you can see we've got this outcome here this is where you've got the annual planning round. That means that you put it through for next year because it's going to need significant capital. Except we go and work on it, break down. Sometimes people put in things like, well, what do you want to change? And they're like, HR. And you're just like, no, we need to break that down. This one could be pass on, and that could be like there's another capital project going on at the moment, and you just think, actually, they're doing something in that area, we just move that on there. And then we've got new. So there's new along there, and they come in as white, and that means that we know to go and mark it. And then we've got reject, and we've got duplicate, and then we've got stalled. For whatever reason, it could be that there's maybe some other project coming up and you think, well, we just need to hang tight for that. Then we've got the Strategy 2025 score. So based on the questions that they answer, they're all drop-down lists. They all have a score against it again. So we've got 10 key performance indicators for Strategy 2025. And when they all come in new, they've all got 100 out of 100, because people always overinflate their strategic score, so we have to have a meeting with them and bring it down. And then we've got this DICE score, and that's the win, worry, or woe. And DICE is I think it's Boston Consulting Group. They created this, and it's a change prioritization methodology. And that's kind of this area here. So I'll go into a little bit more detail there. And then we capture the volumes. And that's just so that we can say, actually, is it really worth doing with all those volumes? And down here, we've got the service maturity, which is none ad hoc, basic, structured, and the other two, because does anybody ever get to the other two? Integrated and optimized. So that's the service maturity. And then we've got this DICE thing. And this seems to be the piece that people don't really know about. So DICE is this change prioritization thing. And it's like D is the duration. So how long is it going to take to implement this project? Then you've got integrity. That's the integrity. Sorry,
it's just dropping.
Is it? Should I take my scarf off?
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all right. Thank you. Then we've got integrity. And that's like not Marcus Aurelius's virtues integrity. This is about like how good a change the project lead of that is. And then you've got commitment, which is the commitment from the senior manager who's sponsoring it. And then you've got commitment from the people who are going to be affected by the change. And then you've got effort, and the effort above business as usual. And from that, you get a score. And that score determines whether it's a win, a worry, or a woe. And just say you've got scores like this, where they're all along the bottom, they're all red, and they're not very good. The object is actually to go and feed that back to the senior leader and say, listen, you need to work on your scores. And if you can lift your scores up, then perhaps we'll work on it. Or if there's only maybe one red and one sort of yellow, you can sort of say then, oh, actually, there's a risk or an issue. Why is it that? Let's mitigate it, or or transfer it, or whatever your risk mitigation might be. So you can go ahead with greens and neutrals, but if you've got the reds and the yellows, you would put them in your risk or your issue log, and that determines whether you get a win, worry, or woe. And then we have this prioritisation group who used to be last year it was the heads of operation, because we'd done quite a lot of centralisation, but the audience has changed this year. And what we look at, we're looking for I suppose the best bang for our buck. So we were looking for a great strategic score, but we're also looking for a good change score. Because it could be that maybe this one along here is because we're putting a new RP in, and that area is just like stowed out and just doesn't have the capacity to change. So you think, well, actually, we're looking for a win or a worry, maybe. And then we're also looking at the volumes, just so that you could get sort of a sense of scale of how much improvement it might make. And then that means when I'm speaking to everyone who wants to phone me up and speak to me and say, pick me to do their process improvement, I feel like I've got empirical information for them, and it's like, well, you've got this one, and that this one outweighs your one, but we'll get to it. I know it's very small, so I would actually, I'm happy to take questions.
Just wondering, at this stage, if you're not consider potential costs as one of the factors of prioritisation?
Not at this. Well, I suppose in a way, yes, because I suppose you have a gut feeling about how it might cost. But we do have another column along here which does have a cost if they know it. But I tend to find that the users filling it out don't really have much. They maybe underestimate how much it might cost. Just sometimes it just doesn't feel valuable, because once you get to the win and you think, right, we're going to go and do these three, you tend to move into further information required, and that's where you're going to go and have that 1 hour meeting, and you start to break it down, and then you get a better feel for what the cost is.
So can I just get on the right beyond the dice?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got service maturity, is that?
Yes, that's right. Service maturity.
So that means how long it's already been in.
It's just like so for when in Heriot-Watt we've got quite a lot of schools, and
Sure.
because they might all have administration doing things differently, and that would be like they might have that would be ad hoc, so they might all be doing really good work for each school, but they're not maybe doing it in a centralised way, so it's not ad hoc. And then structured would be like, well, we're all doing it the one global way, and then the integrated would be, it's in our systems, and then the one that nobody ever gets to in a university would be let me see, what is it, optimized, and that might be where you've got all those digital insights on it, and you're able to look at the metrics to see how fast you can make it, like really, really fast. But because we're such a complex and global university, there's always something that you get more bang for your buck for. So for us, I always feel like structured and integrated is a really good goal for us. Are we okay to move on? And then we've got low-code automation. So this is supposed to be us getting rid of the grind, and this is where we collaborate with other areas of the university. And the outcome being that, we want to do new things, and we want to make sure that the people who are providing the service are actually the people who are developing the service. And one of the things that we also try and make sure is that if we are collaborating on something, typically we're saving a lot of time, and people think that if we're saving time, do they think we're going to, well, that makes me useless, and that's not our aim. Our aim is to free up the repeatable processes so that they can go and work on something better. And if you can ask your sponsor to have that, have something that they know they're going to go to do when they're not doing what we're improving, that just makes the conversation an awful lot better. And it also focuses the mind, because a lot of times somebody will say, well, what are you going to do with it? And they'll go, well, our staff will be less stressed. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. It's great that they're not stressed, but actually if we're freeing up all of this time, what are they going to do with this small portion of time that maybe they've got available to them? So we're always looking for some value add in that there. We also collaborate in the way of, we've got this product called LinkedIn Learning. It's Microsoft's online learning. And what we do is we get everybody into a room and who's working on this area, and we train them on Power Automate in the room with biscuits. With a big screen, and we're blessed that we've got all the lovely screens and stuff like that. We've got all the good AV being a university, so we'll sit there and we'll train them all in Power Automate. And it's not because we want them to use Power Automate; it's because we want them to know what they can do with it. Because that's half the battle. It's like, oh right, we can automate an email. Okay, we can create a SharePoint list. Oh, we can put an approval. All those sorts of things. So we have this environment where where we create this LinkedIn Learning training group. And what else do we do? Oh yes, we also offer a pair programming service. So we have somebody who might phone in and they'll say, oh, I want to do a workflow and I'm stuck on something. And we'll say, right, we'll pop an hour in the diary and we'll just pair program with them. So we'll help them develop it, help them test it, and it's in a safe and secure environment. Some of the workflow, I think because when you work in IT, I've worked in IT for 25 plus years, and the GDPR just, if you cut me in half, I know it off by heart, and a lot of our users who are developing workflow don't really know about GDPR, and just by pair programming with them, you can sort of eyeball that. Actually, no, you can't do that. That's a data breach if you did that. So it's really handy for that. So it helps them and it helps me sleep at night as well. We also try to collect existing workflow out in the university into our division, because sometimes people develop workflow in their own personal accounts, and then obviously if they leave, if they're off sick or if they're on holiday, that there's no support for them. So we sort of collate some of the workflow and make sure that they have access to it. And then we have Empower. So we have a. You'll all have heard of citizen developer groups. Well, I have an anti-drudgery group. Basically, I'm trying to get rid of all the grind in the university. So if workflow and process optimization is the output, then anti-drudgery is the outcome. And again, we meet every Tuesday, the last Tuesday of every month we meet, and it's early in the morning because we've got our Malaysia campus and our Dubai campus, and we just go through the whole thing of pair programming. We do demonstrations. We talk about what's coming in the roadmap, and we talk about things that we actually might switch off in the roadmap in the Office 365 tenancy, because it might be that we think, oh gosh, we don't want to put that out to everybody. So we talk about stuff like that. And
you call it the anti-drudgery?
Yeah, it's the anti-drudgery group. I was going to call it
I think that's great.
Yeah, I was going to call it no more donkey work, but it felt like I had to choose.
Yeah. It's an official committee. Does it report up to that further on?
I think it's going to report up to something, but yeah, it is what it is. So, and then on to continuous improvement. And I chose this slide because I thought it was nice and colourful. But also, the whole feeling about this was that we get lots of feedback, and each of these little optics is a piece of feedback. And what we do is, when we collect an online form, at the very end, we always say, what could we do to make this process better? And I've collected some feedback of one that we rolled out last week, and the feedback was, no, it's already easy. 2, tell people what information they need before they start completing the form. And then 3, the word principal in office of the principal is spelled incorrectly. So you get all sorts of a variety of questions, a lot of feedback. And what we do is we actually go back to them and we say, dear blah, 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 thank you for your constructive feedback. We've accepted it, we've implemented it, or we can't accept it and we can't implement it for this reason. And it's just so that they feel heard. And some of the things like the office of the principal, I just didn't spot that. And neither does the spell checker, because principal is PLE, but our principal is PAL. So, you know, a spell checker is not going to find that. So all really good feedback. So as long as it's constructive, then they'll get an email back. If it's not constructive, I just ignore them. So if it's just a whinge, that's it. Once a month, we meet with the sponsors of each of our process improvements, and it's a 20-minute meeting, but we book out the hour afterwards, because in that 20-minute meeting, we discuss what continuous improvement opportunity we're going to implement, and we just go and do it. And we're very much a fail fast type attitude. Let's just get it out there. Let's I don't know, just like change things really quickly, and if it's wrong, we'll fix it really quickly, and just because we're changing such small pieces of code and adding so much more benefit, people don't actually notice if it's got, well, a few people notice it's gone wrong, and because by the time we notice it, we've already fixed it. So when I began this breakout, you'll hear that I talked about me and how I was this global cross-functional lead across the university for digital transformation. But by the end of it, you might notice I started using we. And it's because I've been able to really show empirically, you know, what the benefits are, how hustling like a startup with very little resources can make you creative. The DICE scoring change prioritization took me half a morning. I mean, okay, I'm a developer, but you know, you could get a developer to do that for you for just, you know, in half a morning, and just add massive amounts of benefits to that. I have a Power BI dashboard on the front of it that says, you know, what my balance of my portfolio looks like in that process area. So I'm able to say, oh, I've done so much work on student satisfaction in 2022. Next year, let's focus on research, or let's focus on graduate outcomes. So there is a BI on top of it. So hopefully you've got some food for thought. Everything I've spoken about is, I think, reasonably simple if you've got sort of decent tools, you know, in your organisation. So if you have any questions, happy to take them.
If there are questions, I'll just give you the microphone just to block the audio.
No?
Hello. How has feedback changed ever since COVID happened?
I think, yeah. So I think one of the things that I've noticed is that while there's a lot of software that does sort of like approval type stuff, and there's a lot of forms, and I'm definitely starting to feel that people are getting a bit sick of the notifications and like, oh, you've got to approve this. One of the things I'm thinking about doing is, and I've spoken to my manager about this, is that can we have an area of our staff portal where people can collate all of the notifications that they have got something to do. So for instance, it might be our ERP's got a to-do list. There's the stuff from our team that's got, you know, creating another to-do list for approval. And So if we could collate them all onto one tile, so that people know what all their approvals and what their tasks look like in one area. But because at the moment it's like they've got to log into a system, or they get a Teams notification, or they get an email. So I would say that's probably the most common piece of feedback is, I just get them notifications from everywhere. They get a notification in Teams, email, blah, blah, blah. So I would say that's the most common piece of feedback. The other bit of feedback that we tend to get is, you've got that information in that system, why are you asking us to input it in this system? And sometimes it's because you're trying to, because it's like the cost of us doing an API to that system is just prohibitive for this, 50 cases a year. But you've got to be upfront and say that. But on the whole, I think most people like the feedback. I love the fact that when you get the data's flat, which is everything I was not taught at at university in computing. So you can interrogate it really quickly and create really nice reports and dashboards from it. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think I would need it, but I was going to say, have you any general observations really in terms of either changes that happened or changes that are continuing to happen post-COVID in terms of IT? I mean, communication has changed immensely in universities, I think, over that period, and our colleague here was alluding to that, really. But is there anything, what's next, do you think? I mean, is it going to be more integration of systems and communication systems particularly, or do you foresee anything else in terms of transformation that you're going to have to concentrate on?
Do you think specifically to education, do you mean?
Well, if you have any ideas of education, fine. I think in fairness, a lot of the points are more general than that.
I don't know. I mean, it's like when I went to university and I did computing, 20 odd years ago, people told me AI was just around the corner, as in like it would be in the next 5 years, and it's not. And even sometimes the way people speak about AI, I'm just like, that's not AI. That's a report, Don't. So I don't know. Just everything happens an awful lot slower than I ever thought. But then Microsoft, the Power tools, they weren't even on the Gartner quadrant in 2018, and now they're right up there. So that's only 4 years. So I don't know. I think the user experience, I know that's so cheesy, but I think the user experience is still very important.
Yeah, I think that I've worked with some analysts at Gartner before, and I think in my experience, they consistently underestimate the actual introduction and adoption of the technology. They're looking at it from a very if everything just gets taken at face value as being a positive change, then this is what will happen. And the more and more kind of personal and integrated these processes and tools become in our life, the more some people are pushing back a bit. And I mean, when you see things like with 5G and stuff, where they just assumed everyone would think it was great and they didn't, that happens, I think, in organizations on smaller levels all the time.
Yeah.
So I think so.
It's like as tech goes up, it's like digital minimalism also goes up, and meditation and all those other things. It's like there's I don't know, maybe suppressing notifications is the way forward, and curating that.
It's just, I think it's more personal when people give it credit for.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm just going to reinterpret my understanding. This is kind of like a truncated code design process that you're able to institute really quickly, really quick with results. I guess my question is, obviously continuous improvement, I heard that, so a form of assessment for how the process goes, but how does the continuous assessment of those programs go within this process? That I have no understanding of right now.
So if you in HE the workflow that we produce or the process improvement that we produce is very much either policy or guideline related. So policies don't really change, you know, for a number of years, and we do challenge that constantly. Why do you need to do that for that one edge case that happened in 2011? You know, we constantly are challenging policy, so that we can make things more efficient. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to get to a place where I knew, you know, I could click on the process improvement part on the Microsoft monitoring tools, and it tells you, oh, this is how fast it went.
Yeah.
But at the moment, there's so much more bang for my buck than going to that level of detail at the moment. I can do a lot more processes before I would get to that. At the moment, it could be next year that we start to drill into the analytics that you're talking about and that you work in.
Yes, I'm just curious. At some point, they must come up with a fun thing that's in like every large institution.
Yeah.
But maybe that's every 5 years or something.
Yeah. Well, the thing is we do have a start and an end time, but because things were so disparate before, we've got nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually the biggest problem with data sets right now that where we're using more technology is that there's nothing to compare it to, so you have to build a data set before you can analyze it.
Yeah.
And you need enough time. Is there a projection for that?
Yeah.
Just curious.
And double it. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I hope that you can take something away and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.